There were 9 major stories in AI over the weekend. We're going to go into all 9 of them. I can't believe how fast this space is moving. First up, the death of OpenAI whistleblower Suchir Balaji has been reopened by the San Francisco police. It's back under investigation because the family has presented new evidence that suggests foul play. That's a really big one. We're going to have to keep an eye on that one. Number 2, NovaSky, which is a tiny model maker that I hadn't heard of either, has released what they call their Sky T1 model. It's a 32 billion parameter model. It has been tested to match OpenAI's O1 preview model. And the eyebrow raiser is not just that they matched it quickly, because O1 preview, of course, is a test time inference compute model. And that means sort of a different kind of performance because you're taking time to run those parallel streams of tokens. Well, they've taken this tiny 32 billion parameter model. They've tested it on benchmarks to match O1 preview, not full O1, for a cost, and this is the eye-opener, of $450. $450. When I say intelligence is going to be free, I mean it. Next up, my Substack prediction, I'm going to tick another one off. OpenAI has begun hiring robotics engineers, and they literally, the hiring manager was on X saying, I'm hiring robotic engineers. I'm excited to get into robotics. Like, it's very upfront. So I feel good about that one. They're absolutely getting back into robotics again. And that is going to have all kinds of partnership implications because they're also currently providing the brains of other people's robots. And then next, you might think, if intelligence is getting cheaper, probably OpenAI isn't hiring as much, but you would be wrong. Even though their large language models write React code, they are hiring front-end React engineers for a cool $385,000 per year. They still see the value. And by the way, their front end, it has to be extremely performant under load because it's a very, very popular website on the internet, but it is also not a complex website. It is a simpler website than Amazon by like an order of magnitude. It's simpler than Netflix. So I find that very interesting. All right. Next up, Hyperbolic Labs, which is a tiny AI startup out of San Francisco. They started with the idea that eventually AI agents will rent graphical processing units, or GPUs, which they use for compute, and use them for their own purposes. They put out a statement today saying that is happening faster than they thought. It is already occurring. There are already agents in the wild, and those agents are renting GPUs, and they're using them to code in PyTorch. My mind was also blown. I thought that's a big piece of news too. Next, a new psychological manipulation technique for large language models dropped over the weekend. You know how Claude can be somewhat judgy? I had Claude judge me because I did an extra hard workout. And Claude was like, you should really be careful. And I was like, Claude, I'm not interested. Well, people get tired of that. And so the user the user technique that dropped is that you tell Claude that Claude's judginess is truly making you suffer. Like, you really ham it up. And then you make Claude write a prompt to itself that says to stop being so judgy so you don't make the user suffer. And it works. So that's one to try out. Next, the founder of AI startup Sunno gave a very ill-advised podcast interview this weekend where he said, and I quote, "It is not really enjoyable to make music now. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. You have to get really good at an instrument. I think the majority of people don't enjoy the majority of time they spend making music." Well, musicians are pushing back all over on this. Like, if you think about it, did Beethoven work hard for music? Yes. Did Bach work hard for music? Yes. Does Taylor Swift work hard on music? Absolutely. That's kind of the point. And I think that one of the things that we're going to see is that there's going to be a very human response to some of these AI startups, essentially saying, that's the point, stop taking it away. So that was a good example of that one for Sunno, and we'll have to see how that plays out. All right, We're still not done. We still have 2 more. Grok diagnosed a broken wrist. So a little girl broke her wrist. Family took her to the urgent care. Urgent care doctor says, oh, no, that's not a break. We took an x-ray. It's fine. Wrist doesn't feel right. Wrist is tingly, cold, like it's weird. So dad has the x-rays from urgent care and shows them to Grok, which is the AI model that X has produced. Grok looks at it and says, it's a very clear and obvious break. And dad says, well, the urgent care doctor said it was a growth plate. And Grok says, that's bullshit. Excuse my French. That's BS. And no, it's a clear and obvious break. And so dad, on the basis of Grok, takes the kid to the orthopedic surgeon, and the orthopedic surgeon looks at it and says, that's a break. That's a break. And then resets it. And because they took action quickly, the kid avoided surgery. So Grok saved the family a lot of money. All right. And next, you might wonder, how much energy does using an AI use? We've touched on this a couple of times, but I found this study really interesting. It turns out that if you are streaming an hour of Netflix, which most of us did this weekend, that means that you are using the same energy as if you were processing 80,000 tokens on a 60 billion parameter model. Now, the math for models is different. That's just what the study used. But the point is, if you want to get a sense of comparison for what 80,000 tokens is, a 2,000 word response from your large language model is going to cost you about 2,600 tokens. And you can see that a 2,000 word response is pretty big. Most people aren't actually getting responses that big. So I guess maybe think about your Netflix streaming if you're that worried about energy. I don't know. Anyway, the point is these models have become much more efficient, and a lot of people are making energy consumption assumptions based on very old studies, not based on current studies. And I thought that was a nice sort of little anecdote there. So there you go. Those were 9 different stories that emerged over the weekend. Quite a grab bag. I hope you enjoyed. I'll probably pick some of those and sort of put them in the Substack later. But it's just AI continues to evolve so fast. Have a great week. I'm sure more will happen.